2002. But once again, we have the privilege of bringing you the Winchester town election results here live at the WinCam studio. It'll be nice to see you again.
Great to be here.
Pleasure.
Great to be with you as always.
Pleasure working with you. In addition, tonight over at Town Hall, ready to receive the results as they come in from the polls, and it is 8 o'clock and the polls are just closing, as we're very privileged to have Sandra Rogers, one of our WinCam veterans here, and I'm understanding that Sandy cannot hear us. Is that correct? I don't think she can hear us, but anyway, if we could toss it over to Sandy for a couple of words. Sandra.
So, I guess I am being introduced. I mean, so far as it's a little difficult to tell what's going on, but we are here at Town Hall, not to worry. I have Betsy Kreger here with me. I have Ellen Burkhart with me, and we will be doing mostly the override questions. However, I will be getting all the figures and getting them over to you guys as quickly as I can. This is kind of the override home base, if you will, for the evening. And so you'll see the others as we progress during the evening. So back to you.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Why don't we start out our discussions this evening with a review of the ballot. If you've been out to the polls today, you've seen there is an extensive ballot, but not an awful lot of contests. Perennial candidate for moderator, John Sullivan, in his
26th term. Actually, John this year sets the record. In 153rd year of the town, we've had two moderators that actually had 25 years of service, John Sullivan and a gentleman named John Wilson. I know that from Carolyn Ward. Didn't know Mr. Wilson from 1872 to 97, but he did have 25 years. But of course, in those days, we've talked about it before, they elected town moderator each evening. And so John Wilson, for 25 years, served as moderator, but with 7 other people over the 25 years. John, as we know, has had it all by his lonesome, and this is the 26th year, so
this is his record.
He'll set the record for sure. And we've been electing the town moderator since 1915 by a town-wide vote. And during that time, which of course is 87 years now, John is far and away the longest serving. Harrison Chadwick is second with 16 years, and Ray Kenny was in between Harrison Chadwick and John. But between or among the three of them, the last half century, just about, we've had the 3 town moderators.
And John is once again running unopposed, so there's no question that he'll be serving his 26th term. Do you know, is this unusual in New England towns for moderators to virtually run unopposed? Are there ever contests for this position?
Oh, sure. There are contests for the position, and I would say it's often in towns that you have a leader, such as John Sullivan, that does such a good job with the gavel that there's not a lot of competition for it in every election. But over time, sure enough, there are battles for town moderator in other communities.
Yeah, well, I think it seems like John has the job as long as he wants to keep it.
Well, I think, people talk about sometimes not enough competition for officers. When you have good people who do the job and have the confidence of the voters, that's the reason that there's not so much competition, I would say.
Right.
But there's always an interesting story behind each of these positions on the ballot, I think.
And before we leave John, it should be said that he's a very involved moderator. He doesn't just come in and moderate town meeting and then back out. He's very involved in committees, in like the Facts Committee that recently went to look into the financial aspects of the town government.
He helped us on the Solid Waste Management Committee. For those who may not know, because if you've moved to town within the last 26 years, you may not know that John was a selectman for 9 years before he was town moderator. But John was a selectman from 1968 to 77, and then took over the town moderator.
Very busy, very involved.
He's been very involved in town government.
Well, that's a nice segue to the selectmen's race. Not a race.
Well, not a race, no. As a matter of fact, the interesting story for me on the selectmen situation now is that we've had the same 5 selectmen for the last 2 years, and we will have now, as we have Betsy Kreger, the chair of the Board of Selectmen, re-elected tonight unopposed, will give us a 3rd year of the same 5 selectmen. That's a very unusual thing, actually, because even though we have people serve for 2, 3, 4 terms, we usually have, during the course of any 2 or 3 year period, 1 name or 2 names coming in and being part of the balance. This, you would hope, you'd say to yourself, we're going to have an experienced team that's worked together for 2 years, worked together now for a 3rd year. That's what this would represent to us. All 5 of these selectmen came on in their first term only beginning 3 years back, and or 4 years now, because last year we had a a second term for, let's see, last year was first Chuck Nurnberger came on.
Yes.
And last year was Priscilla McPhee and Jim Johnson getting second term,
Yes.
if I remember correctly.
I think that's
and
right.
Carl Freisel came on for first term with Chuck Nurnberger. But Betsy now will have a second term, so that gives us a solid group of 5, and we'll see how we do.
And it's a challenging time for the selectmen too, so it's probably a good time for a team to stay together, particularly some of the newer ones, and then now they've become experienced and seasoned.
Yeah, we did
in the
have, there
job.
was one time in the middle 1990s when we had 5 who served for 4 years, and that was the Bill O'Leary, Jerry Polcari, Carol Mullen was on in that time. I'm trying to think of who else was on with them, but they had it from 93 to 97, the same 5 years. And actually, I now remember Steve Powers and Peter Van Aken. I just saw a note to myself about that. They were on at that same time, and Bob Deering had led into that. But for 4 years, they really had the same team working, and they did build up a good camaraderie and a teamwork situation. So hopefully that'll happen
We'll
again.
probably hear some more about that as Sandy mentioned that Betsy Kreger is taking the time to join us here tonight down at Town Hall. I'm sure we'll be hearing some from her and probably some perspectives on how her first term and what she expects to accomplish and what she's looking forward to in her second term selectman. So once again, the selectman's office is unopposed. Betsy Kreger is running for her second 3-year term on the Board of Selectmen. Moving on to the assessor's position, that's Mark Lombardi is unopposed for a 3-year term on the Board of Assessors.
Right, and Mark, this is his 3rd consecutive term, and actually Mark had a term and a 3rd before that. He came on in the 80s, at the end of the 80s, actually, to succeed Frank Mahoney for a year at the end of Frank Mahoney's term, and then was fully elected for a 3-year term, and then went off the Board of Assessors and came back. So this is actually his almost 5th term, but it's his 3rd consecutive. And again, as folks may know, Mark was a selectman for 2 terms back in the 80s, early 80s to the end of the 80s, and past chairman of the Board of Selectmen.
Sure. Board of Health, again, an unopposed candidate for re-election, Richard Maggio.
Well, Richard Maggio came onto the board to fill Randy Schwartz's term. When Randy unfortunately passed away, a great loss to the town and to the Board of Health, but Richard Maggio came on to finish what was the end of Randy's 4th term, 3rd year in Randy's 4th term, I think.
So this is his first election.
This will be his first full election.
Right.
And he'll come on and join. We have a new Board of Health director, as we know, James Nugent Jr., who came on. Joe Tabby retired after a long term of service as our health director, but then he's come out of retirement to help us again at the Department of Health. But we have a new director there too. Yeah.
Planning Board, 2 candidates, one Stephen Parkhurst and Peter Kuttner.
Peter Kuttner. This is Steve Parkhurst's 3rd consecutive term, I believe, and Peter Kuttner came on also to replace and fill in at the end of Harry Shuffalo's term. As you know, we lost Harry last January of 2001 after 50-plus years of service to the community. Harry he was on the Planning Board, but also past selectman twice and past Finance Committee chair and past everything. But Harry, when he passed away, Peter Kuttner was appointed to fill the end of Harry's 4th term on the Planning Board, and he will be elected to his 1st term. And of course, Steve Parkhurst is going on to his 3rd consecutive full 3-year term.
Right, and you know, I'm just noticing something interesting on the ballot, that he's not listed as a candidate for re-election, although Richard Maggio is, yet they both came into the boards under similar circumstances.
Well, that's an interesting thing. Peter Kuttner is not listed as a candidate for re-election. Now, Richard, I think the reason, I'm just wondering myself, I think the reason was Richard Maggio may have had to run for a 1-year term last year to fill Randy Schwartz's term. I think Richard Maggio was appointed and then ran for a 1-year term, so he was elected, whereas Peter Kuttner was appointed during the course of the year after the town elections in 2001. So he's never been elected, hasn't been elected yet. He was appointed, whereas Richard Maggio was elected for a 1-year term. Yeah.
I didn't mean to blindside you with that.
No,
Maybe
but that's
we
what
should have
happened.
asked the town
That's
clerk.
exactly.
Just looking at that.
That's exactly what happened. Yeah.
Well, moving on to the school committee, we actually have a race.
Well, there you go.
We have 2 candidates, and for one position, Mark Feblowitz and Paul Chagru, both running for the 1 seat, open seat on the school committee, being vacated by a veteran
Yep, they
of
got
the,
him. Eli Bortman.
Eli Bortman.
Eli's gone off after 9 years of serving on the school committee, 3 consecutive 3-year terms, and Eli stepped down, and we have 2 gentlemen running. First time either one has run for townwide office, so it'll be a very interesting race, and we'll get a look at somebody, Mark Feblowitz, who's a very accomplished software engineer in his professional life and has been active over the decade in the 90s in the school activities with 3 children in the schools. We have Paul Shagru, who's a very accomplished graduate of the Winchester school system and down at the Winchester Savings Bank and commercial lending, very much around town, and a family that has been in town for some time and involved with the school system for some time. So we have 2 candidates who are very familiar with the school system. Both come from strong backgrounds, and it'll be interesting to see how the vote goes.
And both of them were, if you watched us last Thursday night and repeated a couple of times, both of them were very well spoken. Both of them obviously, you know, bringing a passion for working with the school department to the position. Library trustee, we have 2 new candidates, not unfamiliar to the library itself, as I understand both of these candidates, Jennifer Clifford and Denise Doherty Pappas, were both longtime friends serving on the Friends of the Library.
Well, this to me is one of the more interesting stories on the ballot, because the library, as our townspeople know, has been redone in the past couple of years. The landscaping, the reconstruction, the beautiful job that was done was really done through the work of a long-standing group of library trustees and volunteers. And Jennifer Clifford and Denise Doherty Pappas are now going to come on unopposed to fill 2 seats that are being vacated by Ellen Browning and Deborah Pavel. And it really, with Deborah Pavel and Ellen Browning stepping down, they are the 4th and 5th retirees from that board that included Lane McGovern, Ernie Phillips, and Ann Nevins. And back in 1986, so that's 16 years ago, Ellen Browning came on with Ann Nevins and with Ernie Phillips. Those 3 all came on at the same time. Ellen Browning, because she was finishing the last year of Alice Myrack's term, but you had these 3 come in for a term in the 80s as well, but joined in 88 by Lane McGovern, in 1990 by Deborah Pavel. Those 5 people particularly, and Connie was in there for a term as well, but to me were like the Celtics of the 60s. They stayed together, and they've served those 5 together for 8 full years, and then overlapping some. But they led to hiring a wonderful director of the public library, as we know, the reconstruction period, and the people who've come on now as the new generation, Kevin Drum, Leo Roach, John French, who succeeded in Sam Thayer's term when Sam came on at the end of the 90s, and now Jennifer Clifford and Denise Doherty Pappas. This is a wonderful new team that's going to come in and establish its own presence in the library.
With the amount of work that was accomplished by the old team, they're probably moving into a well-deserved retirement.
Oh yes, oh yeah.
Either that or they're just burned out.
I think the retiring team can be very proud of what they did, and all of the 5 trustees now are equally accomplished and interested in the library, and so it's going to be, in my opinion, and that's an editorial comment, I suppose, but I do know that that we've had a solid group there, and I think a tip of the hat to those who've served over the 90s for the job that they did.
It's a gem. It's a jewel of the town. The whole project.
No
there. Housing Authority, we have 1 candidate, Robert Fiorenza, for 1 opening on the Winchester Housing Authority.
Well, the Housing Authority, very interesting, because we have a 5-member Housing Authority board, and we have 3 members being elected today. And we have, out of the 5, there's always 1 state appointee. The governor appoints 1 of the 5 for a 5-year term. Frank Sopper had it in the 90s, 93 to 98, and then the governor didn't appoint until this year, but Bruce Dove came on as a state appointee this year, in January, I think it was, to be on until May of '03. So he'll finish off the 5-year term that was 98 to '03. But then we have 4 electeds, and 3 of them are going to happen today. So Bob Fiorenza, who was on the Zoning Board of Appeals recently and finished his term on the Zoning Board of Appeals, is running for a 5-year term. And Alice Warren is running for a 4-year term. She's on the board now, and Elizabeth Ellis for a one-year term. Now, the situation here is Alice Warren came on to succeed Barbara Bryant. And you may know, and those who are watching the Housing Authority and friends of Barbara, Barbara resigned after being elected to her second term last year, which was actually a second and a half term for her, but she had to resign for poor health, and she passed away, unfortunately, in 8 years of service to the town on the Housing Authority, and did a wonderful job. And Alice Warren was appointed to fill the year for Barbara's term. And there were 4 years left on Barbara's term, and Alice Warren is running for those today. And Mary Ann O'Brien, who also has served us for 2+ terms on the Housing Authority, resigned in January with just 1 year left. And Elizabeth Ellis is running, was appointed to finish off the end of what was left until the election. Again, an appointment, not an election. So she is running for her first time for the 1 year, and Bob Fiorenza is for a full 5-year term. And actually, what it'll do is it'll give us 4 new faces out of the 5 people on the Housing Authority, all in 1 year's time. And the mainstay on that is Jim Scahan, because Jim is in the middle of his second term. Jim was elected to a 5-year term, elected to a second 5-year term. He's in the middle of the second one. So Jim Scahan is the gray beard of the group, thank goodness. He's there too. But that's the way that is going. And I should say that when Bob Fiorenza gets elected today, it's Susan Keller's term that he's succeeding. Susan Keller was elected 5 years ago, served her term, did a wonderful job there, and she's stepping down, and Bob Fiorenza is coming on. So that's what's happening with our Housing Authority.
And I probably should have made that clearer to those people who weren't familiar with the ballot, that there were 3 people running for, unopposed, for respectively a 5-year, 4-year, and a 1-year term.
Correct.
On the Housing Authority. Correct.
And the full term is 5 years, and the 4 and 1 are the fill terms that are unfilled.
Right.
Yeah.
And moving on to town meeting, interesting situation in town meeting. I'm looking here, of course, at Precinct 1, and there's an Alan McDonald,
Yes.
who apparently is a candidate for re-election. Do you want to recuse
Well,
yourself from
hopefully Alan's
discussion?
campaign manager, McDonald, did a very nice job. And
I
he'll
hope
do
so.
all right. I
Well,
hope
well,
that's,
we'll
yes,
see you.
right.
But let's talk about what we're doing. We're electing our entire town meeting here tonight, aren't we?
We are.
Instead of the third that we usually do in a town election. Why is that?
We're electing all, but we're electing all of the 24 members for precincts 1 through 6, and then 1/3 of 7 and 8. We, every once in a while, have to redistrict the precincts because the precincts have to be in balance. We have approximately 13,500 voters in the town. They have to be relatively equal by 8ths across the 8 precincts. That's the way our town charter is. Prior to the town charter, we had 6 precincts, but when we did the town charter in 1975, we made it 8 precincts, and we said town meeting shall be 24 members per precinct. That's 192 town meeting members. Well, when the precincts get out of balance by population shifts, we have to redistrict. So in 1987, we redistricted all 8 precincts, and we had everybody run for town meeting across the town, all 24 in each one. And then we did it in '94 with half of the precincts, 1, 2, 8, and 7, and this time we did it with 1 through 6. 7 and 8 didn't need to be balanced. But when they run, and you'll see, and we'll come back and talk about that a little bit after we go to town hall, we have 6 of our precincts with 24 people being elected tonight.
It's going to be interesting. And of
We'll
course,
talk about that again.
we haven't talked about the elephant tonight.
No,
the
it's coming.
The final question.
Oh, is there an elephant?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Well, we haven't talked about the big question,
Right.
which everybody's. But I think right now we're going to go over to Sandy Rogers and Betsy Kreger over at Town Hall and see what they have to say this evening. We haven't given them much of a chance to speak. Sandy?
Well, yes. Hi, Alan. We've been conferring over here and listening to you at the same time, and we're sorry to interrupt all of your town meeting coverage and all that kind of stuff, but we thought maybe we were ready to say a few words about overrides here in Winchester. Overrides, as you know, since the passage of Prop 2.5, really come in 2 different kinds of overrides. One is the debt exclusion. The debt exclusion is basically for a specific item, project, etc. The town library was the very first debt exclusion override to be asked of the voters. When you're asking for a general override, which is the second kind of override, you're basically asking for an increase on your tax base, which is a permanent override. It's a permanent, increase, and it's not just all over once the project is done, as it is in a debt exclusion. So having tried to explain the difference between the debt exclusion, which is for one simple single project, and the general override, which is a general, I would say, increase in your taxes permanently, we thought that we'd talk a little bit about what overrides have done here in town, because we've had some of both, and some have failed, and some have succeeded. And our very first override question was in November 8th of 1988, and it was in fact when we were going to do some major rehab work on the town library. That debt exclusion with a voter turnout of 89% failed. Basically, it was, as I say, to do the library was done at a later date, but as far as debt exclusion overrides, that was the first one, and it was almost a prelude to many years of having a difficult time passing overrides in this town. And Betsy's going to talk about some of the intervening years.
Okay. Well, the next attempt was, once again, it was a debt exclusion, and it was actually for the public safety building and the town hall, which were renovated in the 1980s, late 1980s, as you know. And that was on March 28th, 1989. And it, once again, failed with a 47% turnout. It was on the March election. And then subsequent to that, the following year, yet another debt exclusion was placed on the ballot. And that was for the furnishing of the public safety building and purchasing transfer station trailers and to finance the purchase of a municipal computer system. Gee, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Except for ours is not an override this time, our new one. Once again, being on a March election, the voter turnout was 57%, and that once again failed. Following year, March election again, 1991. This, unlike the prior overrides being a debt exclusion, this was actually a general override, and this was done, many of you may remember, as a menu approach. And there were a series of questions. One was for the health department inspector and contractual obligations. There was another question for the library book account. There was another one for rent for the Council on Aging. There was another separate question for the Department of Public Works Grounds Division budget. Plus ça change. Some things just don't change. And question 7, last but not least, was for the school department budget. So.
And even with that menu approach, which we had thought that at least one thing would grasp the public interest, and the public interest would be that it was so important that it would pass. But with the whole
no,
menu, the whole menu
still all failed.
Yes.
Every one of them. Well, continuing on, there was a bit of a hiatus at that point, and the next override wasn't until November of 1996. That was a debt exclusion for the, basically this was under the school master plan that the EFPBC had put together. And this was for building a new elementary school at the Mystic, making extraordinary repairs, and then continuing that on with extraordinary repairs to the McCall Middle School and capital improvements at the Lincoln School, which then would have become swing space. Once again, that was on the presidential election, an 87% turnout, but it failed yet again. So then, coming to 1998, once again, a debt exclusion for the middle school, and bingo, March 31st, 98.
Yes, we
Success.
made it.
Success.
I remember sitting here that evening, to tell you the truth. We couldn't believe that an override had finally passed, and we were all looking at each other saying, it happened, it happened. I mean, we just couldn't believe it.
It was kind of unbelievable, and if
Yes.
I remember correctly, there really wasn't a huge campaign around it either,
and
oddly
the
enough.
interesting thing was that the yes vote was basically just over 50%. It was 50.7%, and the 44% was the percentage of the no vote. So, as I say, it was not, a big, span between the two. The precincts were pretty even in terms of, some passed it and some didn't pass it. But in any case, it did happen for the first time. 1999, they tried again, thinking that, well, maybe these school buildings were the way to go, and yes, indeed, we had to, in fact, have overrides for the school buildings because the renovation work alone is just far too expensive to handle in any other way. So in 1999, we were back again with a debt exclusion override on the ballot, this time for the Lincoln School. And this was by an even slimmer margin, to tell you the truth. It was a margin of 147 votes between the yes and the no. Again, the split in precincts was pretty much the same. It did lose in 2 more precincts than the year before when they had done the McCall one. 2001, we tried for a general override again. And there were 2 questions. They were for different fiscal years. Both cases, the general override, no way, shape, or form was going to pass in this town, and it went down roundly and soundly. In May of that same year, we had a special election, and this time it was for the Ambrose renovation. It was going to be a debt exclusion, and that went down as well. Some people attributed this to the fact that it was too close to the time when we had the general override. Some people attributed it to the fact that people didn't like the idea of having the Ambrose building being torn down and rebuilt. So for whatever reason, it did fail, and here we are tonight.
Back to the old same stand, yet again, looking
But
for
you
a
should
general
explain,
override. Yeah.
yes, what we're looking for tonight.
Right, exactly. I mean, this question is really structured substantially different than prior questions have been. In fact, it is laid out where, as you know, last year we were looking for 2 separate questions for 1.9 million for general operating budget purposes. Well, this year we're looking for 1.9 million for the operating budget, and you've all heard, I'm sure, many times the litany of things that will get cut if it doesn't pass tonight, that we will in fact be looking at reduced public safety personnel. We'll be looking at significant reductions at the library. We'll be looking at some positions here at the town hall as well. And then, of course, on the school side, they're talking about losing approximately 20 positions, including teachers and the school librarians, and some other programs, including some of the elementary music programs, so forth.
So as we get the figures in, we'll let you know how we're doing with this override, and we're sending it back to you, Alan and Alan.
But wait.
Would you like to say something else?
Yes, I would.
Excuse me?
Because there's 2 other parts of the override.
Oh, okay. No, I'm sorry. I thought you were...
No, that was the 1.9 for the general.
Okay. No,
for the general operating budget. This is all a general override.
I guess we've been talking about this override for so long that after a
Yes.
certain time...
I know you go, wait.
it becomes...
Yes. No, but this is actually
Go ahead.
the really interesting and innovative piece of it. Because there's a piece on there, $800,000, which is Part B of the override question, which really deals with general capital questions. As you know, our reserves basically have shrunk dramatically that we usually have tried to use for capital projects since Prop 2.5 came in. We've been using our reserves, in fact, to shore up our operating budgets, and that has been quite problematic for us. So we really haven't been able to adequately see to our fields, our streets, and so forth, as well as our buildings, school buildings. This becomes very, very problematic. As you know, we have many, many problems, including the flooding. One need to look no further than just slightly west of the town hall here to see the Aberjona River as it flows by, and we all know that the flooding problems that we have had up and down. And the Board of Selectmen has been working with state and federal agencies in order to try and come up with some flood mitigation projects to take care of most of those problems if we can. And we've been guided by a CDM report that was completed in 1999. But in order to accomplish those improvements, we have to have matching funds to go with these other state and federal grants. And a substantial portion of that $800,000 that we're asking for will actually fund the flooding improvements.
Mm-hmm. Good.
And then, last but not least, we are also wanting to establish, and that would go into a separate stabilization fund, and that has already been passed and is set. The monies that go into that stabilization fund cannot be used for any other purpose than for that general capital purpose. Likewise, for the building stabilization account, the 1.85 million, that can be used only for building repair and renovation, and really the major renovation projects that we're talking about. So.
And obviously long-term too, not just school
Absolutely,
buildings.
not
but
just the school buildings, but the municipal
buildings, et
Right.
cetera.
I know public buildings generally have a useful life of about 50 years.
Right.
And so this is something that by funding on a regular basis, the town will be able to actually take care of its building needs, both school and municipal, into the foreseeable future.
Right, okay.
So that's all pretty
So,
exciting.
Now, we're back to you guys to complete your, I would say, town meeting history, coverage, whatever. And I think we'll be ready to start giving you some figures very shortly.
Sandy, can you hear us?
Yes, I can now.
I don't know if Betsy can hear us.
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
well,
no, we can hear you now.
we really need to congratulate Betsy on her re-election to the Board of Selectmen,
Why,
even
thank
though
you.
we haven't got a single vote in yet.
Well, that's the advantage of running unopposed, I suppose.
Right.
But unlike our governor, I decided not to withdraw from the race, so.
Well, we thank you for that, and we thank you for your dedication for the past 3 years, and look forward
And
to...
look forward to the next three,
look forward to
because
the
we
next
certainly
three.
do need her.
Well, the board certainly has a lot on its plate. We've accomplished a lot over the last few years. I think we have made significant progress, as I said, on our flooding. Certainly, I think that particularly my accounting and system analysis skills, I think, have been useful with respect
Oh, yes.
to the development of our financial management system, which we anticipate being in place by July 1
Mm-hmm.
of this year, which I think is pretty exciting.
Yes?
And a lot of hard work going into that. And
Will make a big difference.
exactly, and one of the things that I'm very excited about, and here's my chance to give a little plug to Envision Winchester, is that with some of the funding that we were able to get through Executive Order 418, we do have ongoing now a community visioning process and a real opportunity for members of the community to be able to be involved, come down to the community conversations and be heard about exactly what they would like to see the town be in the next 5, 10, 20 years. And I think that's all very, very exciting as well.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you.
Going to be
Okay.
very interesting. All right, thanks very much, and we'll just stand by and wait for you to tell us that our results are coming in.
Well, they're
One-
coming in as we speak.
I'm sure they are.
I see them in the doorway.
I'm sure they are. Okay, well, we'll be back to you shortly.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Yep.
Sandy and Betsy?
Okay.
Okay, back to, we're back here live in the studio. If you're just joining us, you're watching the Decision 2002 live coverage here at WinCam of the Winchester Town Elections 2002. They really did some extensive discussion of the other candidate, as we say, on the ballot. And if you were watching last Thursday night, you saw some extensive hours worth of debate on the override question. One of the questions that occurred to me while we were listening to them is this business of taking three different proposals and combining them in one question. I assume there's a strategy here. Has it worked in the past?
Well, in 1991, we tried, the town did, on a general override, 5 different questions. And in the early votes on overrides, the margin was easily 60 to 40 no against yes. The last 5 elections, 98, 99, 2001, 3 elections in 2001, were closer to 52-48 no. I mean, it narrowed quite a bit. And I think the feeling is, on the 5 questions in 1991, it was divisive of library versus school versus Department of Health. We had questions about whether to have a general override for a health inspector, 41,000, whether to buy books for the library was a separate question, whether to pay the rent for the Council on Aging at the Jenks Center was a separate question, and then whether we wanted to put money aside for the playing fields, and then the 5th question was, do we want to put some more money into the schools? They all failed, but they failed by different numbers, and it was almost like the playing fields were campaigning against the health inspector, and it didn't work out very well on the political front. And I think town meeting this time had an advisory vote. The selectmen were determined when this came to the town meeting to do it in 3 separate questions. There were a number of town meeting members who felt that one question would be better, and was a motion made for it, but I think people felt that we need to follow the selectmen's lead, and we did. And later on, as the discussion went, I think the Board of Selectmen, in its own wisdom and review of it, said one question would be less divisive than 3, and we don't want to pit one area of funding versus another area of funding. We need this bucket of funding, and we're going to put it in certain areas, but rather than have us campaign against each other in different departments of the town. So, I mean, but that's in the eye of the beholder. I'm sure that each town meeting member might have a little different take on it, too. So.
There's been passionate discussion, passionate campaigning, as anybody who's been looking at the local paper within the past few weeks, is page after page of letters, both pro and con. Although you were commenting earlier, it almost seemed like if you were to feel the pulse of the public, or maybe just the letter writing public, there seemed to be more pro-override rhetoric there.
You can't always tell by letters to the editor or sign holding and that kind of thing, but I would say that there were more letters this time around which went to the needs for the override, and And certainly there's a lot of emotion involved in it, either side, but I think less emotion and more reasoned discussion in the letters, frankly. So I think that was a plus.
Well, Alan, we've got our first hint of what may be coming here this evening. We've got our results in from Precinct 6, and probably should take a look at that and see what we've got. And I think we're going to wait just a moment, to get that, so we can actually bring it up graphically as we discuss this. So maybe we're a little premature on that.
While we're doing that, let me just finish where we were in town meeting, and for the suspense of the television viewers, we are going to get some numbers soon, and I'm looking forward to them too. So in the next few minutes' time. But in the meantime, when we left off to go over to Town Hall, we were talking about the town meeting elections. In precincts 1 through 6, when we elect 24 members tonight, and there were 27 candidates for the 24 spots, or 26 candidates for the 24 spots, different precincts, the top 8 vote getters will be 3-year terms for those people. The second tier of vote getters, numbers 9 through 16, will be 2 years in town meeting, and then the third level, which will be number 17 through 24, those will be 1-year terms, and they'll run again next year for town meeting. But the interesting thing is, as we look at town meeting, there are going to be at least 26 new members of town meeting. We have 162 seats available. We have 136 incumbents running, and we have otherwise new people running. And that will guarantee us at least 26, if not more, new members of town meeting. In the normal turnover, that's a little under 15% turnover. That's about a 13.5% turnover. Our normal turnover at town meeting is somewhere between 10 to 13% every year. About 20 plus members new every year out of the 192. So we continue to get new blood into town meeting, and there's always a discussion about how representative town meeting is. But we continue to bring new people in, and there is always also a little bit of the old guard. There are some 32 or 3 people who serve in town meeting who have held town-wide office in the past. So they've been either former selectmen or former school committee or former planning board or current town-wide. So you have, again, about a 17 or 18% amount of town meeting that are serving in town-wide offices or have. So you get a little bit of experience in that amount, a little less than a fifth of the town meeting with that kind of experience, a turnover of about a sixth of town meeting every year or a little less, an eighth to a sixth. And so that's the kind of look that town meeting has. And we continue to have new people come in and try to be as representative as possible. It's a very, to me, a system that is designed to work, continuing to work well for the New England communities, and we think it does the job.
It can be controversial. It's, I guess they say it's democracy in almost its purest form. I guess maybe the purest form would be a pure town meeting, open town meeting rather, as a representative town meeting.
We're going to have some numbers, I think.
We have some numbers. Just to close out the thought, though, one of the arguments I was hearing from opponents of the override was that town meeting is not, in fact, representative of the wishes of the electorate.
And those who serve in town meeting feel the opposite, or many do, because they say the town meeting members are closer to the issues, more educated on the issues, hopefully, that's why they're going to vote, and not always do the 20+ thousand residents of the community know the ins and outs of all the issues, as well as hopefully the town meeting members do. And part of the electoral form of government, the republic form of government, is that we choose people to represent us. A true democracy is all of us would vote on everything that happens all the time. That gets a little complicated, so instead we choose people to represent us and then make it a republic rather than 100% democracy. It's democratic in that we elect our representatives, but we don't ask them to come back to us on every single vote.
Actually, there's a little bit of truth in each one of it. They may not be truly representative of the electorate, but on the other hand, they may be the more qualified people to make a decision.
An elected representative owes not just his vote to the electorate, but his wisdom and judgment as well. That's Edmund Burke and others who've written about those things.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Now let's find out. Let's go to our Precinct 5 results, which have come in, and let's take a look and see what we're seeing for results on, as you can see on the screen here, for the school committee. The first results coming in from Precinct 5. Precinct 5 being in the southwest corner of the town, up towards Arlington and Lexington. Mark Feblowitz with 389 votes to Paul Chagrew's 477 votes. And and for the override question, let's go to, I guess we're going to go to Patty. No, going to Town Hall? I don't know what we're doing here.
A little behind the scenes.
We can't hear you, Sandy. I don't know if you can hear us.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I am,
Here we
speaking
go.
right into the mic.
Gotcha. No, we,
Any case, no, I was going to say Patty is our wonderful behind the scenes, getting all of these figures over to you so that you can put them on the character generator. And of course, we're sitting here, with the papers. And yes, the override question in Precinct 5, which is the first precinct that we're doing this evening, are as yes, 585 votes, and for no, it's 486. So I would say that in Precinct 5, it passed, and I'm hoping that you all will be able to move right into Precinct 6, which we also have sent the numbers over for.
Oh, good.
okay, don't know if we're ready to, are we ready to bring up Precinct 6? Precinct 6, okay. Let's go take a look at our results from Precinct 6. And as we go to the school committee race, Mark Feblowitz has 374 votes to Paul Chagrew's 417. And I think we have the override question results.
That's right. No, the override results are going to be in Precinct 6. Yes is 512, and no is 479. So what I'm going to tell you now, Alan, is that for Precincts 5 and 6, the override question total is going to be yes, 1,097 votes, and no, 965. And I guess I have two people now joining me if they'd like to make a comment about our first set of figures. Betsy is here with me, of course. You've already heard from Betsy, but Ellen Burkhardt is also here and would perhaps like to say a few words about the first two precincts in on this question.
Thank you, Sandy, and thank you to WinCam. I think what's very interesting about these results is the size of the turnout, and I think that's worth noting. You've got almost 1,000 votes per precinct for each of these two precincts. That bodes well for a significant turnout across the town, particularly on a day when the weather could have certainly been better. So right now, if you net out those numbers, the override is leading by 132 votes, if you kind of do all the math, but I think it'll be interesting to see the ongoing results, and again, I'm heartened by the turnout.
Yeah, I would like to certainly cheer on that. I think this was really an extraordinary day. I think we've had extraordinarily high turnout. I know when I went out to vote over in Precinct 2 at about 8:30 this morning, there was already 116 votes. And
that's very good.
That's in a precinct that usually has very low turnout. So
yeah, no,
I think that's very encouraging in terms of it speaking to the fact that people were interested in the election and certainly did turn out to vote, which I think is terrific. I think one of the things that is very significant here is that while Precinct 6 actually tied on the McCall vote, they have never supported an override. And here we see them going in favor, which I think is very interesting.
That is very interesting.
And Precinct 5 as well.
Well,
which
Precinct
is
5,
interesting. They have voted in favor of debt exclusions both for the
That's
McCall
correct.
as well as for the and Lincoln.
And
for the Ambrose.
Yes, exactly. So yes, but the Precinct 6, that is a first for them. So back to you. And as we get more figures, we'll keep signaling to you so that we can give them to the town.
All right, great. Thank you very much for our crew over at the town hall. Well, we got two precincts in. We've got our two westernmost precincts. You're saying significant.
Significant. Well, this is the 15th override vote that we've had since 1988, and the average vote in precincts 5 and 6, the average vote is no across the 14 prior elections. 59% no in precinct 5 and 61% no in precinct 6. The only two overrides that have won when precinct 5 and 6 either voted together in favor or just barely voted no. They're kind of a swing set of precincts because the average votes in 3, 4, and 7 are favorable. The average votes in 1, 2, 8 are negative. But the swing then is 5 and 6 because there are more voters who turn out usually in 3, 4, and 7, even though I say earlier how we balance the number of voters per precinct. In terms of active turnout, historically, the 3, 4, and 7 group has been a little more active than 1, 2, and 8. So it gives them a lead going into 5 and 6, but historically, 5 and 6 has voted dramatically against the override. Here, they're voting in favor of the override. It would cause me to say, without seeing any more votes, that the override would win. And it would cause me to say that Paul Shagru is doing quite well. And the reason I remark on that is because the yes votes are significantly more than the Mark Feblowitz votes, and not that they were similar in the debate on the issue, but I think a number of the active campaigners that we saw today and over the week were holding both the yes and the Mark signs, and I think that there was an identification there. I don't know that's true, but we'll see. I mean, it would cause me to say after 5 and 6 that Paul's a little bit ahead. Now, if Mark does real well in 3 and 7, that's a target for him. I expect Paul to do well in Precinct 4. That's Mystic School, where he attended school. I would think that there'll be some support in the neighborhood end of it there. This will be an interesting. I think it's a close vote on that race. I just am saying that I would say from this that the yeses are ahead by a significant amount.
Yeah, interesting. I hadn't even thought about thought of linking the school committee candidates with the override question. Do you think there is some relationship?
They're both similar in expressing favor for the override. I think that the difference is in the amount of visibility in the campaign. Mark wins the visibility contest hands down. I mean, the roof racks and hand signs were quite visible, and he did a terrific job. Great organization. And the organization was equally strong in talking about the override itself. And Mark and Paul were similar on their stances on the issues, but I think in terms of organization and team that there was a closer identification perhaps with the yes campaign in Mark Feblowitz his campaign. I don't know if that, it's not identical, I'm just saying a little closer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Just a comment,
Right.
an observation.
But as you say, you know, with results in now from Precinct 5 and 6, you would be ready to call it for an override victory?
Just say, I wouldn't call it, but I'd say I'd be surprised. What I would say is it will be totally opposite the first 14 votes we've had if 5 and 6 go in favor and the override fails. That would be against the trend of the first 14 times out. So therefore, I would be quite surprised, yes.
Very, very interesting early trend. One of the things, if we come back to town meeting, one of the things we were talking about earlier was the officials and some of the long-serving people who are retiring from town meeting, people who will no longer be part of the face of the town. And I don't know what we just brought up on the screen there, but I don't think it was any of the results we were supposed to be bringing in. So let's go back to talking about some of the very familiar faces who won't be with us in town government.
Well, it's a good point. Every year we have a few people retire from town meeting that have been an effective or recognized personality. And this year, when we look at the 1999 town meeting, and we have 3 years gone by with 2002, and we've had in precincts 1 through 6 everybody run. Jan Sarika is not back on the ballot in precinct 2. Jan, a longtime member of the community, whose husband Dan has just been elected to the Winchester High School Hall of Fame dinner during the first week in May, as you know. But Jan is not back on the ballot. And in precinct 3, John Montgomery didn't go back on the ballot, who's been active in town and state government, actually. And Phyllis Williams is not back on. Now, Phyllis has been there longer than I, that's for sure. She's been a great town meeting member. John Williams, husband John, is still on the ballot.
Yeah.
And I haven't talked to Phyllis, but I noticed that she wasn't on there, and so I just want to remark that she may be stepping down for a short period or retiring from town meeting, but certainly not from Winchester activities. Precinct 4, Mary Ann O'Brien. I mentioned Mary Ann having put 8 years in on the Housing Authority. I didn't go back on the ballot this year in Precinct 4. And Pat Wells, who long time active member of town meeting, not back on the ballot. And Precinct 6, Paul Raymeyer. These are all people that we continue to see in town activities, so I don't think, I mean, Paul's still doing, I think, the spelling bee activities and other things. But I just have to mention that these folks are not back on the ballot this time, and of course we appreciate all the work that they've done for town meeting, and it's just something, as we talk about the turnover, we continue to get good people come in, stay, and get active, and move on to other activities.
As we know, this town doesn't work without volunteerism, and I think we heard little bit about the latest Envision Winchester project, which, again, a group of volunteers pulling together, trying to really chart out a direction for this town for the next decades to come.
I would just comment again on the school committee race. It is very close, and I should say, and I would normally say too close to call. If we didn't have the yes and no votes on 2.5, I wouldn't even make a comment on it because they're very close. I mean, they're only a little 100 votes plus apart after 2 precincts. They're not, that's not a home base for either party. So it's a toss-up, and you say, how can you tell from it? The only comparison, the only reason I have a comment is by comparing the yes votes to the school committee race, that's all.
They're just looking for their home precincts. Mark Feblowitz is in Lebanon Street.
Yeah, they're 1 and 2.
Yeah,
1 and 2. Precinct 1 and Precinct 2.
But you thought that having grown up in Precinct 4,
Yeah, well, that's helpful to him probably. We won't know. We'll see when Precinct 4 comes up. But I would hope that if I ran in the Wyman School neighborhood, that I might get more votes than someone who ran from the Washington School neighborhood. We always won the football games against
except
those guys.
your school, you were a Wyman School graduate. Well, I'm a Mystic School graduate. Both our schools are defunct, so
That's right. What does that tell us?
I don't know. We're orphans here. I don't know if we're ready to. I think we were scheduling a break at some point here, and I'm not getting feedback. I don't know. Are we going to a break? Ready to go to a break? Okay. I think we're going to take a moment out, and we'll be back with our live coverage of the Winchester town elections for 2002 in just a couple of moments.
She stands in the face of evil and will not lose hope or faith. America, the land of freedom, is still the home of the brave. So raise the banner, call no glory. Let us join our fellow man. History will write the story. America will always stand. History will write the story. America will always stand.
Hey, big time! Heard you got the axe. At least you got a new suit out of it.
I don't know, Pop.
You don't know what? If it was worth it?
Yeah.
You can't give up that easy.
Dad, you don't understand. You've always had your own business. You've never been fired.
I started this business because no one would hire me.
Come on. Really?
Yeah. So get over it. You're gonna be just fine, son.
Family.
Thanks, Dad.
Come on.
Isn't it about time?
Here, take care of Mr. Big Time's laundry. He's got some interviews coming up.
From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back with our live coverage of the Winchester 2002 town elections. I'm Alan Iden. Joining me here, as usual, is Alan McDonald. And over the town hall, we have Sandy Rogers with a couple of other notable town celebrities who are giving us some analysis. And I think we just wanted to, we were discussing during the break that I was trying to figure out the relationship between the school committee votes and the override votes, and I misinterpreted what you said, and maybe you might want to take a chance to
What I'm
straighten me out
saying,
on
I guess
it.
I'm trying to comment as an analyst here on the first votes. It's definitely a toss-up situation in the school committee race. I think looks like it'll be close right down to the end. My comment was based on the fact that the yeses had 500 plus votes in each of the precincts, and the candidate who was the co-founder of the Advocates for Quality Education and very active with the school committee stuff that some people relate more to the yes votes had under 400 votes apiece. So I was saying to myself that I would have guessed Mark to have more votes even from 5 and 6. But he has a good vote, and as does Paul Shagru, and neither one of them has a home base there, so you can't really tell. My surprise was I thought that given the yes votes, he might have had a higher number. That
You
was
thought
all.
there'd be a closer linkage between the Feblowitz vote and the yes vote.
Well,
So
and
finding it
they're
somewhat
both
surprising.
they're both candidates
Yep.
who have been in favor of the override. I just know that Mark has been so active with the schools over a decade's period of time that I thought he would get a higher vote with that particular vote. That's all.
Great. Well, let's go and take a look and see what we got in Precinct 1 as the votes continue to roll in here. Precinct 1, Mark Feblowitz is the winner, substantial margin by 493 to 375 for Paul Shagru. And Sandy, you have the override results for Precinct 1 over at Town Hall,
Yes,
I believe?
I certainly do. The results for Precinct 2 are, one,
Precinct
excuse me, one, I have 1 and 2. For number 1 are yes, 557, no, 466. And I guess I do want to say something about Precinct 1. Maybe that's why I was jumping ahead here to Precinct 2. Precinct 1 has never, ever voted in favor of an override. So this is a first. We're going to see a couple of firsts tonight, I believe. But on the other hand, I just had to stop and say something about Precinct 1. Usually it's by a huge margin that they turn down an override.
Exactly. I'm very excited by this. That's my neck of the woods. So I'm actually in Precinct 2, just across the road from Precinct 1.
Yeah.
And this is really phenomenal.
So back to you for Precinct 2.
Okay, I think we're ready to, we have our Precinct 2 results up? Okay, let's go to School Committee for Precinct 2. Mark Feblowitz, 256. Paul Shagru's 245, almost a dead heat there. And Sandy, you have results for the override on Precinct 2.
Precinct 2, yes is 273, and no is 363. And again, this is not, quite the same case as number 1, but on the other hand, this is a closer vote than normally occurs in Precinct 2. At this point, with 4 of the precincts in, your yes vote is 1,927, and the no vote total is going to be 1,794. So we're doing pretty well with
We
4
are.
precincts in. This is half the town at this
Exactly,
point.
and once again, I think the one thing that is really notable is the strength of the turnout. I think that's a terrific thing. It's wonderful that we were able to get the message out. I think that everybody was interested and people did actually get out to vote, which is terrific, and especially considering that the weather today wasn't exactly optimal.
And Ellen?
No, I would agree with that. I think good turnout is really key, and I think when you have turnout of 1,000 votes a precinct, though it slips a little bit, Precinct 2 is about 600 votes, and then when you look at some of the ones coming down the pike, 8 is about 600 votes. You can start to see some differences, but more is always better, and having more voters weigh in on this and engage on it is a good thing.
So we're throwing it back to you again for
Okay.
your coverage of some of the other precincts that are not mentioned yet.
All right, well, we don't actually have any figures in here, but I know you're itching to comment on what we've seen so
It's
far.
exactly what I was commenting about on 5 and 6. And I agree, Sandy, that's a great comment on 1. It's the first time they voted in favor. That's true. And they're normally 62% no, and here they voted in favor. But here you see Mark Feblowitz gets very close to the vote. It's 557 to 493. In Precinct 2, it's 273 yes to 256 for Mark. That's what I was referring to. And when I didn't see the numbers close as that in 5 and 6, it surprised me. That was all. And where Mark is versus the votes in 1 and 2 on the override is where I expected he would be. And so that was my comment. And so now as I see half of the votes in, precincts 5, 6, 1, and 2. I would say Paul has to do well in precinct 4 because I would expect Mark to do very well in precinct 7 and 3. And I would expect Paul to do fairly well in 8. But the reason I say that is because he is a family that's of long standing in the town, and 8 is usually pretty good about recognizing those kinds of things.
Well, as I'm trying to do figures on the wing here, and I hope these have been added up, I've got Mark with 1,512 votes and Paul with 1,514.
That's pretty close, huh?
That's about as close as you can get.
That's a horse race. That's a horse race.
Those are really unofficial results, and I probably should
Yeah.
add them up again, but I don't know if anybody
Well,
else
I
has
think
has
it'll
done
stay.
that.
I think we'll be
Very
right
close
through to well, the next 4 will be just as interesting. So I wasn't trying to call it, as you were saying, but I was trying to identify that Paul did very well in precincts 5 and 6 versus Mark. Mark bounced back and did very well versus Paul in precincts 1 and 2, as close as it is. And the yes vote is extremely strong. I mean, I would expect that precinct 2, which has been the most heavily no related, usually in the first 14 votes, precinct 2 has been 66% no. So this is a no by 273 to 363. That's 90 votes apart. That's a lot closer than 2/3 no, as we know. And we're going to see much stronger numbers in turnout for 3, 4, and 7, I know, because of the turnout in 5 and 6. So it's going to be very interesting still to see these numbers come.
Well, you know, you don't have to worry about calling the race or anything. We are in the same time zone.
Yeah, no,
we
I
don't have to
don't
worry
like-
about those West
and
Coast,
you know, we've been doing
West
this
Coast
all-
viewers.
We've been doing this a long time, and
Yep.
we've never called them, but you take a look at the precincts and you say who's ahead by the vote, and I would say on 5 and 6, on the school